What could make Kang, the actor known for his calm and composed image, suddenly break down in tears in front of everyone? The entire set froze as his emotions spilled over. No script, no warning, just raw honesty. But it was Kim Yoo Jung's next move that turned the moment into something no one could forget. The cameras kept rolling. The crew stopped breathing. And what happened next shocked the entire industry. Join Red Carpet revealed as we uncover the truth behind that powerful moment, the fear, the tears, and the unexpected gesture that left everyone speechless. Cameras had been rolling for 6 hours straight. The air inside the studio felt heavy, like it carried the weight of something unspoken. Every breath, every whisper, every click of the lighting rig sounded louder than it should have. The crew was exhausted. The director was losing patience. And even the actors, those accustomed to endless retakes, looked ready to crumble. But no one expected the breaking point to come from Kang. He was the one known for his calm professionalism. The actor who never lost control or forgot a line. Never let emotion rule him. He was quiet, steady, reliable, until that day. The scene they were filming wasn't even supposed to be particularly explosive. It was a moment of emotional distance between his character and Kim Yoo Jung's. A farewell built on years of silent longing. On paper, it was delicate, a restrained conversation between two people who loved each other too much to say so. But something about it felt wrong. For 3 days, the team had tried to capture that balance, sadness without tears, heartbreak without breakdown. The director, a veteran of 20 years, kept repeating the same note. It needs to feel real, he said, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Not like acting. Like you're actually losing something. Kang had nodded each time. But the emotion wouldn't come. He delivered the lines perfectly. His face serene, his voice even. But his eyes were empty. Kim Yoo Jung noticed it first. From the beginning, she had sensed something different about him that week. He moved slower. He smiled less. His laughter, the light, boyish kind that usually filled the set, had vanished. During breaks, while others joked or scrolled through their phones, he would stare at the ground or quietly pace near the window. Someone trying to breathe through a storm only he could see. She had asked him once, softly, "Are you okay?" He'd smiled faintly, the kind of smile meant to reassure others but not himself. "Yet," he said, "just tired." But tired wasn't the right word. There was a crack beneath the calm, a tremor in his hands when he thought no one was looking. And then came that day, the day the cameras captured something no one was ready for. The lights were reset. The script supervisor whispered, "Scene 87, take 6. Action." The room fell silent except for their voices. Kim Yoo Jung delivered her lines first, steady, restrained. Her tone was soft but aching. Kang responded exactly as written, polite detachment. A subtle tremor, eyes lowered. Then came the final line, his character's farewell. It was supposed to be quiet, broken but controlled. Instead, his voice cracked. The sound was small, almost imperceptible at first. But to anyone who knew him, it was wrong. It wasn't part of the performance. It was real. He tried again, but the words tangled. His chest rose sharply. His hand, which had been resting on the table, began to shake. The crew exchanged confused glances. The director leaned forward, frowning, whispering to his assistant, "He's off cue." But Kim Yoo Jung didn't move. Her instincts told her something else was happening, something beyond the script. "Cut," the director called. Kang didn't hear him. He just kept talking, not to her, not to the camera, but to himself. His lips trembled as if the line he was trying to say had turned into something else entirely. "I can't," he whispered. "I can't do this anymore." Like a dam breaking, the tears came. And the tidy, cinematic kind of crying, the kind that fits perfectly within a frame. It was messy, uncontrollable, raw. His voice broke. His shoulders heaved. And for the first time in his career, Kang stopped acting. The crew froze. No one moved, no one breathed. The director opened his mouth to intervene. But the words caught in his throat. Even the sound operator's hand hovered midair, unsure whether to lower the boom mic or hold it steady. Kim Yoo Jung just watched him, eyes wide, heart pounding. She had seen actors cry before. She had cried herself in dozens of roles. But this was different. There was something terrifying about it, not in its intensity, but in its honesty. It was as if all the walls that made him Song Kang the actor had suddenly fallen, leaving only the person underneath. For a brief second, she didn't know what to do. Her mind screamed to follow the director's cue, to step back, to let him recover. But her heart moved before her thoughts could catch up. She dropped her script. Without saying a word, she walked toward him, her footsteps echoing through the silent set. Everyone's eyes followed her. When she reached him, she didn't ask what was wrong. She didn't say anything. She simply put her arms around him. The crew gasped. At first, he stiffened, as though embarrassed to be seen like this. Then, his body gave in. His hands gripped her shoulders. His head dropped against her neck. And he cried, really cried. The kind of crying that empties something inside you. The director didn't yell this time. He just whispered, "Keep rolling." The cameras kept running. For several long minutes, the studio existed in that fragile stillness. No one dared to speak. The lighting crew blinked back tears. The assistant director, a stoic man known for his professionalism, lowered his headset, covering his mouth. Yuna didn't move. She just held him tighter, whispering something only he could hear. Later, someone on set would describe it like this. It wasn't acting anymore. It was two humans trying to breathe again. When Song Kang finally pulled away, his face was pale, his eyes red. But his breathing had steadied. Disoriented, as if waking from a nightmare. "I'm sorry," he murmured. She shook her head. "Don't be. You needed that." The director finally spoke. "Take 10, he said quietly. His voice trembled. "Everyone, take 10. The room emptied slowly. Crew members stepped out, whispering among themselves. Some were crying. Some looked shaken. Others avoided eye contact entirely, unsure if they had witnessed something sacred or something they shouldn't have seen. Yoo Jung stayed behind. Song Kang sat on the floor, his back against the wall, his head bowed. The set around them was a battlefield of silence. "You scared them," she said softly, sitting beside him. He gave a weak laugh. "I scared myself." There was a long pause before he added, "I don't even know why I cried." She looked at him. "Maybe because you finally let yourself." He rubbed his eyes with his sleeve. "It's stupid. I've done harder scenes than this. He stopped. His throat closed around the words. "I guess I'm tired of pretending everything's fine." Yoo Jung didn't reply immediately. She just watched him, her expression unreadable. Then, quietly, she said, "You don't have to pretend with me." He looked at her, uncertain, almost childlike. And in that look, she saw the truth. This wasn't about the scene. It was about the weight he'd been carrying far too long. When filming resumed later that afternoon, the energy had shifted. The director approached cautiously. "Do you want to try again?" Song Kang nodded, calmer now. "Yes. One more time." Yoo Jung gave him a small, reassuring smile. "We'll do it together." The cameras rolled again. But this time, there was no strain, no forced emotion. The words flowed naturally, carried by something real. When his voice trembled, it wasn't weakness, it was truth. The take ended in complete silence. Then the director, eyes damp, whispered, "Cut." The set erupted into applause. It wasn't the kind of applause actors usually get after a great performance. It was softer, gentler, like gratitude. The kind people give when they've seen something raw and human. Night, after everyone left, the director sat in the editing room, watching the footage over and over. The camera had captured everything, the tremor in Song Kang's hands, the first tear slipping down his cheek. It strengthened Yoo Jung's embrace. He turned to the assistant editor. "Don't cut any of it," he said. "Not a single frame." The younger man hesitated. "Even the part where he breaks down. Especially that part." He leaned back in his chair. "That's not acting. That's live." The next morning, word had spread. People whispered in the hallways. Some said it was the most powerful scene they'd ever seen. Others wondered if it had gone too far. "Was that real?" one producer asked the director. "Yes," he replied simply. "Every second of it." The producer frowned. "Do you think it's ethical to keep it in the show?" The director paused, thinking. "I don't know. But I think it's necessary." Meanwhile, Song Kang didn't show up on set the next day. His manager said he needed rest. He didn't press. They understood. Kim Yoo Jung, however, came early. She walked onto the empty stage. The same one that had witnessed everything. The lights were dim now. The air still heavy but quiet. She stood in the middle of the room, remembering the sound of his sobs. The way his body had trembled in her arms. She could still feel the weight of it, how human it was, how fragile. And for reasons she couldn't explain. Smiled. Not out of joy, but out of recognition. Because she knew what it meant to break. She had been there once, young, overwhelmed. Roles that demanded perfection while the world demanded more. She remembered the suffocating expectation to be flawless, to never falter, to never show weakness. That day, when she saw Kang lose control, she hadn't seen failure. She had seen freedom. 2 days later, he returned. The first thing he did was find her. "I'm sorry about the other day," he said quietly. She looked at him, eyes soft. "You're really bad at taking breaks, you know that." He laughed. "Guess I am." There was a silence between them. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the silence of two people who had been through something together and didn't need words to explain it. Finally, she said, "That scene, they're keeping it." He froze. "They are." She smiled faintly. "The director said it's too real to lose." He sighed. "I'm not sure I want the world to see me like that." "Then let them see," she said softly. "Because maybe someone out there needs to know it's okay to break, too." He looked at her then. Really looked at her. Nodded. "Okay." When the scene finally aired months later, no one was prepared. It was raw, intimate, full, and beautiful. Viewers cried. Critics called it a moment of pure vulnerability. Social media exploded with clips of the scene. Millions of comments flooding in. "That wasn't acting. I've never seen anything this real. Yoo Jung's embrace broke me." Within hours, it became the most discussed moment of the year. Hashtags trended across platforms. Journalists dissected every frame. Fans posted comparisons between the script and the final footage, highlighting the unscripted lines, the trembling voice, the genuine tears. No one could stop talking about it. But what few people knew was that behind that viral moment was a quiet, wordless understanding between two people, an understanding built not on performance, but on truth. And though the cameras had captured it, only they knew what it really meant. The world couldn't stop talking about it. The scene had aired only once. Spread like wildfire. Within hours, hashtags trended across Korea. Then internationally. Clips circulated online with titles like Kang's real tears, not acting, and Kim Yoo Jung's unscripted comfort scene breaks the internet. For days, the entertainment industry buzzed with speculation. Was it planned? Was it a breakdown? Was it real? The production company released a short, carefully worded statement. The scene was filmed in one continuous take. Emotions expressed by both actors were genuine. Decided to preserve it as is. In respect of their artistry. Respect of their artistry. It sounded noble, but behind those words was a reality only a few understood. When the cameras stopped that day, Kang hadn't known that his tears would become a national moment. He hadn't known that his most private unraveling would be dissected frame by frame by millions of strangers. All he'd wanted was to breathe again. The world had seen something sacred and turned it into spectacle. At first, he tried to ignore it. He stayed offline, avoided interviews, and refused to talk about the scene. But he couldn't escape it. Every billboard, every magazine headline, every late-night show mentioned it. Public adored him more than ever. The irony was unbearable. His moment of collapse had become his most celebrated performance. He told his manager, half-jokingly, "I should cry more often." But the joke didn't land. That night, he sat alone in his apartment, lights off, replaying the clip on his phone. Watched himself shaking, breaking, crying. Voice, gentle, steady, whispering words of comfort the microphones hadn't caught. Hurt to watch. But he couldn't stop. Because for all its pain, it was also real. Kim Yoo Jung, meanwhile, handled the aftermath differently. She gave no interviews, no explanations. When asked about it during a press event, she smiled politely and said, "Sometimes, the most honest moments are the ones we don't plan. I'm grateful to have shared that one." Her words were simple, but the way she said them silenced every room she entered. Those who knew her best said she carried that day quietly, as though it had left an imprint she couldn't quite shake. She kept to herself between shoots, more introspective than usual. Yet when she talked about Song Kang, there was a tenderness in her tone. "He's brave," she told a stylist once. "Braver than he realizes." Weeks turned into months. The drama's success soared. The tear scene became a case study in acting classes, a reference point for authenticity. Students analyzed it. Directors praised it. Fans romanticized it. But for Song Kang, it remained a wound disguised as an achievement. One afternoon, during a photo shoot, a reporter asked lightly, "So what were you really thinking in that moment?" He smiled faintly. "That I didn't want to think anymore." The room fell silent. Yoo Jung met again a few weeks later for an awards ceremony. The air buzzed with flashes and voices. Every step they took drew attention. But when they finally stood side by side on stage to present an award, the noise faded into nothing. For a second, it felt like the set again, the lights, the silence, the weight of unspoken things. She glanced at him. "You okay?" she whispered under her breath. He nodded. "Better now." He smiled. It wasn't the rehearsed red carpet smile. Small, private, meant only for him. And though millions were watching, the two of them existed in their own quiet world, the same world that had once been shattered by his tears. At the ceremony, reporters swarmed them backstage, asking the same question again and again. What really happened that day? Song Kang finally answered. His voice calm but sincere. It wasn't part of the script. It was part of life. And sometimes, life doesn't wait for the camera to stop rolling. The clip went viral instantly. But this time the response was different. No gossip. No debate, only empathy. People called it a rare moment of truth in an industry built on illusion. Months later, when awards season arrived, drama dominated. Both Song Kang and Yoo Jung were nominated for Best Actor and Best Actress. Everyone knew why. When Song Kang's name was announced, the crowd erupted. He walked to the stage, bowed deeply. A long pause before speaking. "I've always been afraid of breaking," he said, his voice trembling. "That day, I did. But I realized something. Sometimes breaking isn't the end, it's the beginning." He looked toward the audience. "The person who didn't walk away when I did, thank you." The cameras cut to Yoo Jung. She was smiling, eyes glistening. She mouthed two words, "You're welcome." After the ceremony, they slipped away from the flashing lights, finding refuge on a quiet balcony overlooking the city. For a moment, neither spoke. The night breeze carried the faint hum of distant traffic. Seoul shimmered below them, beautiful and unreachable. "Do you ever wish it hadn't happened?" she asked finally. I thought about it. Sometimes. But then I remember, it's the first time I was honest, with myself, with everyone. She nodded. "It's strange. The world calls it acting. But for us, it was the opposite." He laughed softly. "The day we stopped acting." "Exactly," she said, smiling. There was something comforting in their silence, the kind of silence that doesn't need to be filled. Time passed. Projects changed. They moved on to different roles, different stories. But that one moment never left them. It became the heartbeat of their careers, the story everyone remembered. The scene that defined them both. 5 years later, a documentary crew revisiting the scene that changed K-drama invited them for interviews. They hadn't spoken in a while, schedules, distance, life. But when they met again on the set of the interview, it felt like no time had passed. The producer asked, looking back, "What do you think really happened that day?" Song Kang smiled. "I think I finally stopped being afraid." Yoo Jung added softly. "And I think I finally learned how to listen." The producer leaned forward. "Listen to what?" She looked at Song Kang and said, "What someone's silence is really saying." The room went quiet. The cameraman, behind his lens, swallowed hard. When the documentary aired, that moment, her words, expression, went viral again. Not for the drama, not for nostalgia, but because people recognized something deeper. It wasn't just a story about two actors. It was about everyone who had ever pretended to be fine when they weren't. One spring evening, long after the storm of fame had passed, Song Kang found himself walking through an empty studio, the same one where it had all happened. The set was gone now, replaced with new props, new stories. Could still feel it, that echo, That silence. That heartbeat that had once broken through the noise. Sat on the floor, closed his eyes, and remembered the way her arms had felt when the world fell apart. The door creaked. You came back here too. He looked up. Yoo Jung stood at the entrance, holding 2 cups of coffee. He smiled. Guess we both missed it. She handed him a cup and sat beside him. The studio was dark except for a single overhead light, soft and warm. It's strange, she said. We've filmed hundreds of scenes since then. But this place still feels the most real. He nodded. Because it was. Sat there quietly, sipping coffee, surrounded by the ghosts of that moment. Before they left, she took out her phone and snapped a picture, the empty studio. The single chair, the beam of light. What's that for? He asked. She smiled. Proof. Of what? That even the most painful moments can become beautiful when you survive them. The next day, she posted the photo with a simple caption. Some scenes never end. Within hours, fans flooded the comments with memories, quotes, and tears. The most unforgettable moment in K-drama history. They didn't just act, they healed. This is what real looks like. Years later, when both of them had become legends in their own right, interviewers still asked about that day. Where in every interview, Kang would smile and say, that wasn't the hardest scene of my career. It was the truest. And Yoo Jung would add, people call it acting, but to me, it was 2 people remembering how to feel. In a world obsessed with perfection, their unscripted imperfection had become timeless. The silence, the embrace, they weren't just part of a story. They were the story. And for everyone who had ever watched it, or felt it, or carried their own hidden ache, it was a reminder that sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do isn't to keep performing, but to finally, quietly, stop. When the studio lights faded that night, no one knew they were witnessing history. But history rarely announces itself. It just happens, quietly, honestly, in the places where people are brave enough to feel. And that's what made it unforgettable. On that day, Kang broke down. And Yoo Jung stepped forward, not as actors, not as characters, but as humans. And in that fragile moment, between action and cut, they reminded the world what truth looks like. Long after the applause faded, that moment still breathed. Not in headlines or awards, but in the quiet corners of memory, the silence after truth, the stillness after release. As what happened between Kang and Yoo Jung wasn't a scandal, or even a performance. It was something rarer, a fragment of honesty caught between light and shadow, between who they were and who they pretended to be. The world watched 2 actors collapse and rise again. Those who looked closer saw something deeper, 2 souls recognizing themselves in each other's pain. For one fleeting instant, walls of fiction fell away, and what remained was raw, human, and real. Time will blur the details, the camera angles, the dialogue, the set, but not the feeling. That will stay. Because the truth, once revealed, never fully leaves the room. So when the world remembers that day, the tear that fell without warning, embrace that silence, the crew, the whisper that no one could quite hear, let them remember this too. It wasn't planned. It wasn't perfect. It was real. And sometimes, that's all that art needs to be. Thank you, to those who still believe in sincerity. Thank you, to those who dare to stop performing when the world expects perfection. Thank you, and to Kang and Yoo Jung, for proving that even under the brightest lights, unforgettable thing you can show is the truth.